Today we'll be going through a scene from Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. The scene after Roy is captured by the government is one of my favorite scenes from one of my favorite movies. It is a classic potboiler that is designed very simply, but effective. As the scene intensifies, we get closer and closer to the characters, utilizing several seemingly hidden techniques to help tell the story. Without further ado, I'm Thomas Mendolia, and this is Shot to Shot. In shot one, we start on a wide from outside the room. Roy is center frame with a guy in white in the foreground frame left. Roy is closed off in a frame. This is what is known as frame within a frame, which can represent a multitude of different things, but I believe in this case it helps create a sense of entrapment. Roy is trapped in this room. David, Claude, and another man in a suit enter from frame right, bombarding the little space Roy has. Shot 2, this is somewhat of an angled medium 2 shot on Claude and David. The focus looks like it is split between the two characters. From what it looks like, it could be a wider angled lens like a 35 with the aperture of around f10, which enables the camera to achieve this deep focus. As they push the microphone in towards Roy, we cut to shot 3, a medium shot on Roy as the microphone is pushed in on the right side of the frame. Notice how isolated Roy is compared to the previous shot. He's got nobody on his team or by his side. There's even this line in the wall that is further separating him, further emphasizing that idea of frame within a frame. Juxtaposing this shot with the previous shot, you can see the status dynamic of the room. 2 against 1. Shot 4, we cut out to a wide, letting us look at what he's facing. He asks,
"Where's Jillian?"
and we get to see exactly what is standing in his way from seeing her again. Claude, David, the man in the suit on the right, and the closed door. Notice how Claude, David, and the man in the suit's gaze is all on Roy, which further looks like some sort of interrogation, really putting the pressure on Roy. The shot slowly dollies in to close the man in the suit off from the conversation. We're going to start to see from here how the camera gets closer and closer to the characters as the scene intensifies. Eventually, we're going to forget about the man in that corner as the scene becomes more about the conversation between the three people at the table, and even more so, how this situation is affecting Roy. In every scene in every movie, that scene belongs to someone. Usually a filmmaker, one of the main things they will ask themselves is, whose scene is this? Whose point of view are we telling the story from? In this scene, the point of view that we're telling the story from is Roy. We're not as concerned with the questions that he is being asked, as we're more concerned with just how Roy is feeling about all of these questions being asked of him. Shot 5, another slow dolly in as we start with a over-the-shoulder 3 shot from behind David's left shoulder on Roy. This slowly pushes in to help intensify the moment as well as setting that idea in motion of the world closing in on Roy. Shot 6, a reverse over-the-shoulder 3 shot on Claude and David. This could be a continuation of shot 4, but I'm going to go ahead and call this a new shot because it's just a little bit tighter. Shot 7, similar to shot 5, could be the same shot, but again, I'm going to call it a new shot as it's somewhat tighter. Look how closed off Roy is. You can achieve this frame within a frame effect using production design, lighting, and even people, like in this instance. I love in this scene how usually when you see David and Claude, they're in the same frame, as they're almost like one person with two heads talking at Roy. Again, we're in Roy's perspective. He's not singling out a single person. Right now, it's two people talking to him. Next shot, back to shot 6. Shot number 8, even tighter on Roy as we arrive at a medium over the shoulder on him, which cuts Claude out for the first time. The scene intensifies as Roy asks,
"Who are you people?"
but still receives no answer. Back to shot 6, again because the scene is about Roy. We need to see how it's affecting him. Their shot stays the same, and his shot we keep pushing in tighter and tighter as his anger grows. Shot 9, even tighter on Roy, which is the same as shot 3. Shot number 10, here we have a profile 2-shot on Claude in the background and David in the foreground. This is the tightest we have seen David and Claude as they finally ask the question they came to ask.
Have you recently had a close encounter?
Une rencontre plutôt inhabituelle.
A close encounter with something very unusual. Who are you people?
So far, there has been no camera movement except for the 2 shots that dollied in. Camera movement can come from one of 2 places, either subjective or objective. If it's subjective, the camera is moving either with a character's physical movements or with their emotions. If it is objective, it moves with the eye of the filmmaker. Neither one is better than the other, as they are both tools to use to help tell the story. I believe this scene uses both very effectively and efficiently. The 2 dolly shots in the beginning were subjective, based on the emotion of the scene and the intensity that it was building. Now in this shot, Spielberg uses his first objective camera movement as he pans from this 2-shot on Claude and David to Roy. Why does he wait? Why use it only once? Well, if he were to use it over and over again, then this particular movement in this shot wouldn't have the same impact. It wouldn't mean anything. Instead, he chooses to save it. Why? Because this is the fulcrum of the scene. In other words, it's the tipping point of the scene. It's not the climax, but it's the moment in the scene that the rest of the scene hinges upon. The pan to Roy is almost like what the audience's head would do if they were in the room watching the conversation. This is a great place to cut time in the scene. In essence, there are almost 2 scenes in one. The first is Roy not wanting to answer, with his guard up as he is bombarded with questions. The scene escalates to where David and Claude finally ask the question they have come to ask. Instead of saying no, essentially Roy smiles and asks,
Who are you people?
Which to me is almost an invitation to ask more questions. At the fulcrum, this is a great place to cut some time, as we almost are restarting the scene. The second part of the scene starts with these pictures. Shot number 11. This shot starts on an insert of photos being placed on a table. However, Spielberg is famous for combining several shots into one longer shot. Check out a fantastic video on this by Every Frame a Painting called the Spielberg Oner, which I've included in the description below. This shot starts on an insert, but it dollies back slightly. It stays on the insert while a photo that we as the audience recognize and Roy recognizes is lifted up by Roy. Once this happens and it is registered, the camera continues to dolly back and tilt up at the same time, creating a new shot which matches shot 6, the over-the-shoulder 3 shot on Claude and David. Shot number 12. This is the closest shot we've seen on Roy as his emotions get the better of him.
That's not crazy, is it?
He throws himself into the scene, no longer leaning back and guarded, but eager and leaning forward, eager for an answer. Shot number 13, the last shot of the scene. Roy is now the most in the dark he has been. He's been dragged to an unknown location, questioned by 2 guys he has no idea who they are. Finally, they've gotten to a point where they're addressing the weird things that have been going on with him, the things that have torn his family apart and have been aching at him. Roy's very small in this frame, with Claude and David in the foreground speaking to each other, almost ignoring Roy, almost as if they're talking through Roy. This is a fantastic shot for further isolating Roy and making him feel left out. The camera racks focus from Roy to Claude and David as they speak to each other, leaving Roy out. Roy interrupts them, and our focus shifts back to him. The camera stays where it is as it is put in the point of view of David and Claude. Roy stands up, shifting the status of the scene to him for the first time. His anger is finally too much to contain, and Spielberg chooses to show that from the point of view of the other 2 in the scene. The scene climaxes.
If this is just nerve gas, how come I know everything in such detail? I've never been here before. How come I know so much? What the hell is going on around here? Who the hell are you people?
And then we're out. Thank you so much for watching. This is a brand new YouTube channel that I'm starting, diving into the breakdown of scenes from my favorite films. If you liked this video, check out my previous one on Call Me By Your Name. Like, subscribe, and as always, let me know your thoughts on the scene and if it affected you differently. As all art, I believe, is subjective to the viewer's experience. Until next time, this has been Shot to Shot.